Hey everyone. I just wanted to do a little video. Hopefully, it helps people out a little bit in the sim community. Obviously, this hobby, just like many hobbies, can get expensive. But some of the best stuff that you find when you do sim racing can be free. Like the free versions of Content Manager or Sim Hub or other softwares like Crew Chief, for example. Well, I just come across a software in the last day or two, although it's only today that I've actually set it up. When I first looked at it, I thought it was a little bit daunting, to be honest. But once I started setting it up, I realized it wasn't really that difficult. And but it's not anything I've really seen mentioned in these groups, and I think there's a good chance many people are missing out on this, and it could be affecting your experience quite a lot. I think it's like invaluable, this software, and it's free, and it's very easy to set up once you sort of wrap your head around it. So the software that I'm talking about is called Joy to Key. Now I know many of you will know about it, but this is for those people who don't know about this yet. Um, Now, you can see this is not registered. It's actually free, and like I said, I've only had it for a couple of days. Once you've decided you want to keep it, the owner requests that you do purchase it. Although I think it's very cheap to purchase. It's only like $1 or something. Um, but yeah, but to at least get the software and play around with it and decide what you want to do, it is free, and you're not actually forced to pay for it. It's a bit of an honor system. So if you're low on a budget and you just want to get up and running with this quality of life feature, you can do that. Um, so I want to just show you just briefly a quick rundown of what it does, and then I'll go into this a bit better. So essentially, what will happen, at least to me, and I'm assuming this has happened to other people as well, especially if you're playing in online Kunos servers, is you'll go into your servers. Sorry, this has been open for a while, but it just hasn't loaded the servers, I guess, because I haven't been in here. So, um, but what will happen is you'll be in a server, for example, or you'll be looking at the servers, maybe unsure exactly about what you want to do, or maybe you were just drifting and then you come across certain server and you see a spot, an opening, and you think, oh, I really would like to jump in that specific GT3, but there's only one available. So what you quickly do is you go back to settings and you load up your control profile and connect the wheel that you plan on driving a GT3 car with. In my case, it would be a GT3 Neo. So let's say I came out of drifting and I've got my round wheel um, using a different control profile. Uh, be, you know, I've got another wheel that it's basically, I've got two wheels in my case, and one's hooked up to a Sim DT hub to give it like shifters and buttons and stuff, but it's still my round wheel for drifting as well. So I had two control schemes. I'll just show you. I've got more than two really, but I had one that I'd particularly use would be GT1 round handbrake. That it means that I'm using my sequential shifter as a handbrake in this control scheme. Um, but all my functions here, for example, like traction control, ABS, all of that would be mapped to this wheel, the GT1 round wheel. And then suddenly I realize, I want to jump in that GT3 cast, like I said. So I come back here, load up my GT Neo controls, quickly jump back into drive. By then, somebody else is in the car. And you go to load it up, and it's not until you're halfway through loading it that it spits you back an error. And for me, at least, I have to then bring up my task manager and close the Assetto, the Assetto calls a task in here or whatever. So it just causes this headache where you know, you realize like, oh, I want to jump in and drive this particular car, but suddenly I don't have the right wheel on. Or you do jump in and then realize like, oh, I want to use a different wheel, and when you disconnect and put on your other wheel, it just doesn't work until you jump out and then re-jump in again. You know, so it's not like a big deal, but you know, I've always sort of been able to anticipate my way around it. Like generally, I have a rough idea of what I want to drive before I even sit down on the rig, but not always. And there is many cases where, you know, I'll jump into a server, one car would be perfect to drive with a round wheel and a H pattern like this Corvette, but then there's other cars that, like this here, that would be just perfect to drive with my GT Neo. Now, you know, there's one available of each of those particular cars. By the time I get in here and change my control, and you know, this is how I have to move my mouse. I've got this like little mouse set up so my mouse doesn't fall off my rig. But you know, this is basically, you know, how quickly I can move. You know, so I quickly load up this control scheme and then jump back in and join in. And, you know, half the time I manage to get it in time and half the time I don't. So, you know, just to quickly show you, I actually have no wheel connected right now. And because I'm only filming my screen, you can actually see you can kind of see it because the SimMagic Alpha is not connected. This is, they're the paddle shifters on the SimMagic Alpha right now. So that's actually not connected. I'm going to connect it and you'll hear it, but you won't see it. I'll let that initiate, light up, etc. And now that's gone. And now you can see it's connected. But what I'm going to do is disconnect it, because I want to show you that even with it disconnected, and it's the same thing with my other wheel. My other wheel's actually off, and that's, I don't know if you can hear that, but that's a slightly louder magnetic shifter than the GT Neo. So you got my Sim DT, GT Neo, and you know, just bear in mind nothing is up there activating as I press these. Nothing is trying to shift, you know, in here. So anyway, let's jump in. I'll just jump back into here. I realise that the track in the car is mismatched, but I need something that will that I can show quite a few functions on. A GT3 car is really good for that. So we're going to load up, and this is the scenario where we realise we've loaded up, and you know what? Actually, I want to use a different wheel, but what's going to be good about this is you're not going to have to leave the server to do it. So I'm going to turn on my... Okay, this is on. That's alright. Let's go into... Let's just see if this... I think this is on. Oh no, it's off. It was... I must have turned it off. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is on now. So my GT1 wheel, although nothing's connected to the base... Oh! That happens sometimes when I touch a SimMagic base with no wheel on. It creates this weird force feedback effect. Hopefully it won't do it now. No, okay, good. Alright, so there's nothing connected to the wheelbase right now. My SimMagic Alpha. Nothing. But I'm going to connect it after joining. This shouldn't work other than if you've got that control scheme loaded up already. Okay, so SimMagic Alpha. Now, the other wheel. And I know that all you've got to go by here is the audible sound of each one. But this is the Sim DT. Oh, okay, I've gone all the way. Okay, GT Neo. Sim DT. And just to show you, you know, I can adjust my traction control on both. Okay, sorry. Traction control on one and the other at the same time. No worries. I know that you can't see me doing the wheels, and you can only see maybe this tiny writing up the top. or what's on my dash there, but you can see it's going through the TC1. Does TC2 even work on? And it's funny, this car's got, I've mapped TC2 on my PXN, but it just doesn't work on ACC. So yeah, but you can see me going through TC1. You have to take my word for it that I'm doing it on both, and on my PXN button box too. So I can go through, so I can have three, like there's my ABS, that's my PXN button box, my GT Neo, and my SimDT. And you can actually kind of tell just by how quick, like I can go through really quick on the SimDT. On the PXN, it's a little bit more finicky. It's like you have to let each thing register. That's just something about that. And then on the GT Neo, it's as quickly as you can do it. Basically, I'm using the one of the rotary encoders on the face of the wheel for ABS. So there, yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to show you how flawlessly this works. It's like, all right, I can use either wheel. Bang it, they just work. It just works. How cool is that? So I don't want to make this video any longer than it has to be. I'll quickly go into how to use the program. Okay, so it's Joy2Key. So that's what you want to be Googling. There might be better videos on showing how to set this up, but I'll give you a quick rundown on what you want to do. So, for example, the way I've set it up is I've basically mapped things to my SimMagic GT Neo, then mapped keyboard functions, adjacent to those, and then mapped my SimDT to those keyboard functions in here. So let's press the shifter. There's the shifter. So you can see the shifter up activates button 12. So you press that on the wheel. What you might need to do is go into options. It'll say how many are detected and how many you want to configure. This number may be lower, which will show it, which means it may not show your device up here. So click on options and just change that to the amount of devices detected. If your device isn't showing already. Once you've done that, yeah, just, you can then, even if you're unsure of the device, pressing a button, see how it will bring up that little thing there, little asterisk. So that tells you, okay, that's the one, and then bang, you can see the button that you're looking for. Okay, that's my shifter button. So now we click on that, edit assignment, and simply type in the button that you've assigned for shift up. In this case, it was next gear, that I was pressing. And that happens to be B on my keyboard button. So I just simply type B there and OK. And then move on to the next button. And it's really that easy. It's so cool. So there's my brake balance up button. You can see brake balance move to front is R. It happens to be one of my thumb encoders on my GT Neo. So you can see it there. You won't see it here because you don't see the register of the keyboard button, but you can see me pressing it here. In one control scheme, you can see that I'm able to, activate either one, and either of them will work in game. So, and then again, the PXN is also, registered to that. In this particular function, brake bias is also registered to R. So if I press R, the momentary switch forward, brake balance forward, momentary switch back, brake balance back. So let's say if I'm just using the round wheel, don't have it actually turned on because for whatever reason I just haven't needed the buttons. Suddenly realize I want to change brake balance or bias. I can do that on the PXN button box. And it's all available within one control scheme, So, that's just what I want to highlight. Instead of having, one setup for your button box, one setup, you've just got a round, I used to call that round. So, I have a lot of my functions on a button box, and then most of my functions on my SimDT, and then another one where most of my functions are on my GT Neo. Well, now it's just all on one. And although you see two here, the only reason there is two is because I use a sequential shifter as a handbrake. So you can see here, at the moment, I'm in handbrake configuration, where if I pull back, on my sequential, it activates handbrake. So that's all that is. Otherwise, I would just have one and I would just call it combo, because and to be honest, now that I'm running this, I can probably delete all them. I actually just don't need them. Now I can memorize the functions that I've got much easier. Believe it or not, it's just going to be easier. There is one thing to keep in mind: don't double up on functions. So if you've already gone through and made certain functions, your like extra options on your button box or whatever, and then you go and double map them to something here. Like for example, turbo for me is my top red buttons on my PXN, which I had to unmap special options when I did that, just to make sure that I wasn't doubling up on inputs. So just keep that in mind when you do it. But yeah, it's really easy to set up, really, and it's once you start setting it up, that's it. It sort of automatically saves, as far as I can tell. You can rename it. I renamed it, as you can see, SimAC. So rename it if you want. It should be set automatically to simply minimize when you hit X, and then it will just run in the background, and it'll be like one of the best things you've done to your sim setup, and it'll cost you, as honestly as you want to pay, really. So yeah, I just thought I'd record this and share this. Hopefully it helps someone.